while, worked in med surg, orthopedics, outpatient surgery, a little bit of everything. And I actually started going to school when I was in the civilian world, did nursing administration, found out just didn't work with my lifestyle. Having a kid, working full time, and going to school was a lot of work. So went a couple of different ways, and then I decided to join the Air Force. Started in the clinic for a while, and then the Air Force sent me to school. So I went to San Diego State University, got my master's as a clinical nurse specialist and in nurse education. Then I went to Travis and worked inpatient in a med surg unit, and then also worked as a clinical nurse specialist. That was my main job, doing policies, education. I worked with the nurse residency program there. And now I am in recruiting. So that's just a little bit about me. I've also deployed to Afghanistan as a nurse as well.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. We appreciate you being here. So first thing we're going to kick it off with today is nurse transition program. So the main thing to take away from the nurse transition program is that it's going to offer you like a residency training to be a fully qualified nurse in the Air Force. And then the residencies are listed here, as you can see on the slideshow. Next slide. Cool. And then here's all the eligibility requirements to apply. Most important eligibility that's on here, one, obviously you want to be qualified for the military in general, but most importantly is your GPA. You want to make sure you have that 3.5 GPA or higher. So it's very important that you keep your GPA up because this is almost like a make it or break it kind of thing. And then again, here's all the locations that the Air Force offers for the nurse transition program. Next slide. All right, so fully qualified nurses. Ma'am, I'll let you speak a little bit about this if you want, because this is kind of how Major Holland came into the Air Force. Yeah.
So as a fully qualified nurse, if you need to have at least, it says a minimum of 1 year experience. And then if with the 1 year experience, you would go to a hospital. With 2 to 3 years experience, it changes frequently. You could go to a clinic. So it just kind of opens up different locations for you. It takes a little bit of time to join as a fully qualified because you do need to get a commission, which it has to go really high up into the government to get your commission. You get this really cool certificate that's signed by the president, pretty sweet. And once you join, you go to OTS, and that's also with the NTP program, and they teach you how to be an officer, teach you all about the officer programs, like what you need to learn, how to wear your uniform, where to salute, that kind of stuff. So it's fun no matter what. Then you can, all these other programs are fully qualified as well. So the critical care nurse, you need to come in with an experience, as well as the NICU and OB. There is a way to come in as a new grad.
Great. So yeah, and as you guys can see, these are all the things that the Air Force is currently looking for as far as qualified, fully qualified nurses go. If you guys think that you fit this criteria, or somebody that fits it, by all means, give them our our email address, and we'll help them out as best we can. Like Major New Holland said, it does take a little while to get fully qualified nurses into the Air Force system. So as long as they're willing to wait it out, and we can kind of go from there. But most importantly, the takeaway from this is they have to have that 12 months or more of experience. And this qualifies as like bedside experience and not so much managerial. All right, and then next slide. Cool. So these are some more things that the Air Force is looking for as far as fully qualified nurses. Awesome. Next slide. All right, so steps coming into the Air Force. Would be reaching out to one of the 3 team members here as far as your qualifications and stuff like that. We would send you over to process at the Military Entrance Processing Station, which is where you get your physical completed. And then also we'll send up all of your documentation to the consultant to make sure that you're qualified for the program that you're trying to enter. And once everything is completed, we'll submit your package to the board. The board will review it, and then they'll say either you're going to be in the Air Force or you're not qualified yet, and that they would like to see more experience under your belt, or they'll kind of give you little pointers on where to go next if you're deemed not qualified at that time. Cool. Next slide. All right, so any questions from you guys? I know it was really fast, and what we do plan on doing is sending out this recorded link to everybody, and then also all the student body like I talked about before. So we do have some questions in the chat. What does it say? How long is, oh, we got a whole lot of questions. Love it. All right. So good morning, hello. All right, how long is the officer training program? So that's a great question. That's going to be 8.5 weeks, and that actually happens at Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama. So clarify the age requirements for entry. Okay, so the NTP is going to be both NTP and fully qualified. I believe is 48. And then what are opportunities for nurse practitioners? So, I mean, nurse practitioners would come in as fully qualified, I believe. It just depends on your years of experience and also what your experience entails. So really, we would need to see your resume at that point. And then can you speak to the new grad entrance for OB? So for OB, we do have an NTP program. So same thing as like coming in as any other NTP. You would just have to turn in your resume, and then we would see where you would fall based off of your experience and also your school. So
this is Major Shockey. They'll also do a perinatal course after NTP. They'll go to their base and then at some point go to that perinatal course. Just like the OR, they'll go to the perioperative course.
Oh, awesome.
After NTP. So at NTP, they just do med surg, and then they go on to their follow-on assignment to do the further training.
Oh, understood. So it's like a fellowship then.
Kind of, but it's a lot shorter. I believe, don't quote me, maybe 12 weeks, somewhere around there.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. How long does it take? Okay, so can this process be started as a senior in college? Yes, it definitely can. We'll start your process, but just be aware that you do have to have the BSN in order to be qualified for the program. So yes, you can start the process, but the board will probably be the following year that you're applying to.
Right, and you have to be NCLEX qualified with your RN as well before you can you hear?
Stand up.
For the seniors also, you have to have your NCLEX taken care of with an RN before you actually leave for OTS. Something to keep in mind.
Private service officer. Okay, so I would have to look further into the prior service officer. Basically, you're asking if you can come in as, every prior service officer is a little bit different, but it seems to me like you did the NTP program in another branch, maybe based off that question, how it's worded, but we could definitely talk more about that maybe offline. And Celeste says, can you scroll down a little bit? how long does it take to advance from med-surg nursing to trauma or critical care? So this is a great question, Major Mulholland, maybe you can answer this one.
Yes, I can talk about this. So when you're coming in as a med-surg nurse, you can apply for different programs for trauma or critical care at your 2-year mark. They would prefer to have you doing that at your 3-year mark because they really want that solid med-surg. Really depends on where you're going and what your goals are, and you'd work with your chief nurse and of course your leadership too, and figuring out what would work for the unit and for your career.
And if you're at a large base that has critical care, then you could potentially do that earlier. Again, like she said, working with the chief nurse, but you could do it earlier because you would stay at that assignment. So you don't have to have the time on station.
Okay, cool. So how long are you stationed at any one location?
Depends on the assignment. Typical is about 4 years. My current assignment's 3 years, but typical's 4 for officers.
Awesome. Cool. And then we did have some questions prior to that, people that couldn't make it to this briefing that we're doing the recording for. So I know you talked about transitioning, right? But what does your typical day look like as a nurse? And basically, they really wanted to know also, what is your patient workload compared to maybe the civilian world?
We are very comparable to the civilian world, and it really depends on your location. So my last job was at Travis, which is a pretty big hospital, and we also take VA patients. So you're going to get a lot of variety of patients, typical civilian. And in California, the nurse-patient ratio they follow because we also have civilian nurses that work with us. So in med-surg, it's 1 nurse to 5 patients is the top, but just like anywhere in the United States, there isn't a standard for that. So it could be different depending on your location. There's a difference though with the military nursing because we have technicians and they're not the same as CNAs. Our technicians are very skilled, they're trained. They start at different levels, but they can do lab draws, they can put in Foleys, they can start IVs. They could do EKGs, which most CNAs aren't able to do. And you have a lot more of them. In my experience with civilian world, I could have a floor of 30 patients, not my patients, just the floor. And we could have 1 or 2 technicians when it was just difficult to even do your bed turns and your baths and just the basic care with that need. But in the military world, you could have like a technician that take care of 8 patients, 6 to 8 patients. So it's really nice. I don't know what your experience is with it, Major Shockey.
Sorry, I had to get off mute. I actually haven't been inpatient in a really long time, like since 2011. So my information is probably not very relevant, but we had much better manning than on the civilian world. And I still get that feedback.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much for that input. And then also, well, one of the other main questions that I get a lot of times is how often do you guys deploy as nurses? And then what does the deployment usually entail as an Air Force nurse?
So it really depends on where you are and what specialty you're in. Med-surg, people fight for those deployments. I was able to deploy and I went to Afghanistan for 6 months. My location most time is like a role 3. So it's a little bit of it's a hospital that's in that area. There is remote locations as well, but a lot of times they are like a hospital. And in my experience, it was an amazing experience. We mainly took care of the locals that had war wounds. And so I dealt a lot with the Afghans and we had interpreters. They were our lifesavers. But it was just such a different world, learning the trauma. You have a good team. usually when it does come to trauma, it's a little bit different as well because it's all hands on deck because you have limited resources. So if there's like a mass casualty, everybody gets called in. You all live like really close to the hospital. All your specialists are there. They have like a chairs lined up with urologist, orthopedic, then everybody. And then there's a trauma czar that goes around doing his thing or her thing. And it's nice. Well, and then I also was tasked for humanitarian at one point. It got canceled because of budget concerns, but it was like in 2010 when the budget wasn't like just in the economy in general was not great. But it was with the Navy. It was a humanitarian mission on the Comfort. The Navy has 2 hospital ships, and it was going to go to Central and South America and just deal with humanitarian. It's called Continued Promise. So there's a lot of cool opportunities, new ones coming up all the time. When you're looking at different specialties like ER, critical care, your OR, you're more likely to deploy more. Same thing though, usually it's about a 6-month deployment. Did that answer the question?
Yes, yeah, thank you so much, appreciate it. So really, I mean, that's all the questions that I had as far as what people typically ask when they're trying to, do their initial interviews with us. So I appreciate you guys answering all those questions for everybody. Yeah, and then does anybody online have any other questions that you want to ask now? Or you can always email us. And if Major Muhan, whenever you get a second, if you could change it back to the front screen, it has our org box on there that they can just email directly to us. One more. Perfect, yep. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions or you want to start the process or you just have questions about the process in general, feel free to reach out to this org box here, the 318th RCS. And we'll be sure to take care of you guys. But yeah, I mean, other than that, if you guys don't have anything, this is it.
Master Sergeant Arnold, there's another question. Are there any current delays in the boards?
So not as of right now. So we're actually pushing for NTP. I believe the board closeout is November. So if you guys are interested in processing for the nurse transition program, we'd love to get you processed as soon as possible. At least have your physical completed and starting your application process.
Also, fully qualified nurses, those applications are case by case and are typically rolling. So that is going to depend on your specialty.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate it. And if you have anything, feel free to reach out to us at this org box and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.